In Arkansas, the landscape of organized street gangs is often misrepresented as being dominated solely by groups like the Bloods and Crips. Law enforcement reports and local accounts have long pointed to a different influence taking root in parts of the state. Chicago-based organizations such as the Vice Lords and more prominently, the Gangster Disciples. These groups trace their origins back to Chicago's South Side, where the formation of structured alliances like the Folk Nation reshaped how street organizations identified and operated. As members and affiliations spread beyond Illinois, that structure followed, eventually making its way into southern states like Arkansas, where it adapted to local conditions and rivalries. First arriving in the early 90s, the Gangster Disciples made their way over from Memphis, Tennessee, which was only about an hour's drive from Little Rock. Before long, the influence started spreading through the west side, and more people began claiming folks, signaling the growing presence of the organization in the area. As that presence grew, media portrayals didn't always show the full complexity of what was happening. Documentary coverage, including segments aired on platforms like HBO, tried to break down the Folk Nation structure for a wider audience. However, critics and community observers noted that some of the individuals featured didn't accurately represent established members, which led to confusion around symbols, alliances, and terminology. In the documentary, they had primary white groups identifying as Black Gangster Disciples were shown engaging in conflicts that were loosely labeled under broader rival categories. Some of this activity was even mischaracterized in terminology, with references that blurred distinctions between Folk Nation affiliations and unrelated West Coast sets such as the Hoover Criminals from Los Angeles. The result has been a mix of real organizational history and media distortion.
See, I heard when he be stacking, he be throwing that Hoover. And I also heard this. I also heard that when he be stacking, he throw Hoover down like this and roll it up like we do slobs.
Fuck them. They talk all that bullshit, man, but they hood so easy to take over.
But today, I plan to set that record straight, as the folks are the most militant when it comes to Arkansas gangbanging. Timothy Davis, known on the streets as Tim Tim, came up in Little Rock in an environment shaped by crime, pressure, and limited options. That kind of setting doesn't just influence you, it pushes you to look for something bigger, something structured, something that feels like it means something. For Davis, that pull led him toward the Gangster Disciples. What drew him in wasn't just the street reputation, it was the structure, the order, the way it looked like more than just a gang. It felt like a system, almost like a code to live by. There were ranks, positions, a chain of command, a clear hierarchy that gave people roles, purpose, and identity. At the top, a chairman of the board. Under that, boards of directors, split between prison and the streets. Then came governors, regents, enforcers, and soldiers. Everybody had a place, everybody had a lane. So to someone like Tim growing up surrounded by chaos, that kind of organization can hit different. Like you're part of something bigger than yourself instead of just surviving day to day. For Tim Davis, that structure and the ideology behind it started to feel almost like religion. Rules, loyalty, identity. It wasn't just something he was around, it became something he believed in. By June 10, 2004, that belief system had been tested to see if he loved the nation. Davis pulled up to the Woodbridge Apartments with Alundra Smith and Beverly Young. He stepped out, moving through the complex, crossing paths with people who knew him and people who knew the name, Tim Tim. Andrew Jackson was one of them. Witnesses describe a conversation going down, not explosive at first, just words being exchanged. But somewhere in that moment, the energy shifts. Davis walks back toward the car. When he returns, there's a gun in play. Seconds later, it turns fatal. Multiple shots ring out. Jackson is hit in his head and chest. No one else at the scene is seen with the weapon. The moment is quick, but the impact stretches far beyond it. Jackson dies days later from those wounds. After the shooting, everything speeds up. Davis jumps into the back seat and takes off. Inside, Panic mixes with control, orders being shouted, pressure on the driver to keep moving. Witnesses later describe Davis making statements that sound less like shock and more like finality, knowing that he had to get rid of anything linking him to the crime. So he tosses the gun off a bridge, but police close in and stops the car. Davis then hops out and runs, but not far or fast enough. In court, the case centers on one key question: was this planned or did it just happen? The prosecution points to the movement, going back to the car, retrieving the weapon, returning to the conversation, then firing multiple shots at vital areas. That, they argue, shows intent, not random, not accidental. The defense pushes the opposite, that there was no setup, no prior plan to encounter Jackson, no clear proof that Davis came there looking for that outcome. But the jury sees the sequence, hears the witnesses, weighs the words spoken after the shots were fired, and they make their decision. But Timothy Davis is then convicted of capital murder and kidnapping, sentenced to life. He appeals, challenging the evidence, the jury process, the courtroom rulings. But the Arkansas Supreme Court affirms the conviction across the board. No error significant enough to overturn it. Sadly, Davis's story wasn't unique. Plenty of soldiers for the nation threw their lives away behind the same cause. Inside the prison system, the Gangster Disciples stay locked in constant conflict with rival groups, mainly the Vice Lords and Bloods, especially those tied to the People Nation or who claim the Finball or the Five. Unlike Bloods and Crips, the Gangster Disciples don't move in sets. They operate in decks, structured under leadership figures known as pillars, individuals who pass down orders, enforce discipline, and make sure every member pays what they owe. This structure keeps everything organized and disciplined, with members required to chant GD folk in a militant, almost military style manner while maintaining a strict workout routine. On both the streets and behind bars, they aligned themselves with the 23rd Wolf Street Crips, standing in opposition to rivals like the 21st Street Bloodstones and the Vice Lords. They were even rumored to have rivalries with other blood sets who didn't bang the Five, sparked by backdoor situations and internal tension. Word on the street says Rico from Southside Piru was killed by SD at the Midtown Park Apartments on the 6th floor, all over a pink Glock. The story goes Rico tried to line SD up for a robbery, but SD wasn't folding. He gambled with his life instead. SD is originally from Chicago and is a rumored shooter for the GDs, and is said to have a strong connection with the 23rd Street Crips. The street wars and drug trafficking caused investigators to begin documenting the expansion of the Gangster Disciples linked activity into smaller Arkansas communities, including Searcy and surrounding areas of White County. What initially appeared as isolated drug distribution was later described by authorities as a coordinated trafficking network involving methamphetamine and cocaine sales across the region. In April 2020, federal and state agencies launched a joint investigation later identified as Operation Central Sweep. Over the course of the investigation, surveillance operations, controlled purchases, and intelligence gathering allegedly connected dozens of individuals to a drug distribution conspiracy operating in the Searcy area. Authorities reported significant seizures during the case, including more than 100 pounds of methamphetamine, several pounds of cocaine, and dozens of firearms. On March 5, 2020, a federal grand jury returned sealed indictments, naming over 30 defendants connected to drug trafficking and firearm-related charges. The indictments were kept under seal while investigators continued building the case and identifying additional participants in the alleged network. On Thursday morning in March 2021, coordinated law enforcement operations were carried out across Searcy, Judsonia, Augusta, Helena, West Helena, and nearby communities. 17 individuals were arrested during the sweep, while others were already in custody or remained at large. Additional firearms were recovered during the arrest phase, adding to the evidence collected throughout the investigation. The unsealed charges included conspiracy to distribute methamphetamine, possession with intent to distribute, and multiple firearm offenses linked to drug trafficking activity. Federal officials described the operation as a large-scale, multi-agency effort involving DEA, ATF, Homeland Security investigations, postal inspectors, and several state and local task forces working to dismantle the alleged organization operating in and around Searcy. But again, the Gangster Disciples have been reported all across Arkansas and other parts of the United States. And because of that widespread and decentralized structure, law enforcement often faces ongoing challenges when it comes to fully disrupting and dismantling affiliated networks. Larry Hoover's vision was a structured organization built around discipline, respect, and growth came to life. What started as a local vision eventually became a national organization with influence and long-term game across different regions of the United States. This has been Arkansas Bangin', a look into the history, stories, and reported street culture that shaped Arkansas over the years. From local figures to wider gangs and organizations, these stories continue to be discussed, documented, and debated by people who've seen it firsthand and those who study it from the outside. If you want to be part of the conversation, you can join the Reddit community where people share stories, discuss figures, and talk about different topics surrounding Arkansas street culture and its history. It's a space for open discussion, different perspectives, and ongoing dialogue about what shaped these communities. Until next time, the big slime needs to get his sleep now.